Welcome to the Flymen Fishing Show, where we talk fly fishing, fly tying, and everything in between. I'm your host, Scotty Davis.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely. How are you?
Perfect. I'm doing well.
Nice. Sweet little layer you got back there.
Yeah, my man cave. Got the dogs on the floor.
Me too.
Everybody's kind of hunkered down. Hopefully you don't hear him snoring.
Yeah. You got a
Orvis.
dog?
Yeah, Orvis is 15. He's like a Husqvarna chainsaw. The other one's Hazel. She's not quite as bad.
Yeah. What kind of dogs?
Orvis is a Pekingese and Hazel is a rescue. We think she's some kind of King Charles Chihuahua kind of mix. Who knows?
That's what we did. We got the DNA test on our dog with 7 different breeds.
She's about the best damn dog you can get your hands on, though. I mean, when you rescue them, I think they know.
Totally.
It sounds cliche, but that dog doesn't leave my side. I mean, I can be on the paddleboard and she wants to go.
Yeah. Does she ride it with you?
Sometimes she gets a little antsy if there's other dogs on the creek and she takes a nosedive off the front, and then it's a fire drill trying to get her back on. So and the inflatable gets a little touchy when she gets jazzed up too. So I'm nervous she's going to put her toenails through the front when she's scratching. So
trying to hold on.
Yeah, but other than that, she's pretty much everywhere with me.
Yeah. Well, this is your phone. That's clearer than most computers I've seen.
Really?
Yeah,
that's good.
Sure. Awesome.
I figured we'd do it on the phone just so if you wanted to look around, take a peek at the fly tying room, we could have a look, see.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, we'll just get started.
Okay.
All right, cool. Today we have Drew Chicone on the show, a man that needs little introduction. On behalf of the fly fishing community, man, I'd like to thank you for all you do. It's pretty incredible, your contributions to the sport.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
it's a labor of love,
Yeah. And you've been a commercial tyer for over a decade, so you obviously started this pretty young, right?
Yeah, so I started tying when I was really little, about 6 years old, trying to find something to do. I was poking around in the basement. I grew up in upstate New York, so it's frozen about 8 months out of the year. And I found an old avocado colored sewing box full of fur and feathers that was my parents' fly tying kit. They took lessons for something to do when they're like first married or dating or something. And I had all my mom's handwritten notes and some old books that were, signed for my dad and from the 70s, which is pretty cool. I still got them. I started poking around, just trying to see what I could do, create. And then I caught a landlocked salmon on a fly that I tied, and it was pretty much all downhill from there.
So the tying came first.
Yeah. I was lashing deer hair onto hooks. It looked like the cat threw up. I've got a few of my first flies, which are, got to start somewhere, but
totally.
they were pretty rough. But yeah, I've got some of these old books here. Let me see if I got one. This was one of my first books.
Oh, and nice.
It was signed for my dad in 1975 from my grandmother. I mean, this is some vintage stuff here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love those old books.
Yeah, I think I actually have. This will kind of crack you up. Like some of my mom's like handwritten notes.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah. She was like drawing how to do them, which is pretty cool.
You should frame those in kind of like a collage. That'd be awesome.
I was thinking about it. I mean, she did a pretty good job illustrating it too. So that's how I got started. Like I said, it's been downhill ever since.
Art Flick was kind of the man up in that neck of the woods, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, him, Eric Leiser, who surprisingly became one of my biggest influences. Yeah, there it is. I met him at a Bass Pro fly tying class I was teaching, and that's pretty much what I would say accelerated, or he was a springboard for my career as an author. He kind of shoved me into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. He seemed
Yeah,
like a great teacher too. That's probably where you.
Yeah, that was the deal with him. One night I was tying, I probably had 15 or 20 kids at this Bass Pro class. And he rolled in with his plaid pants and his members only jacket. He was in his 70s, and he kind of watched me for a while, and I was, giving him the eyeball out of the side, like, who's this old dude? And then it kind of all came together, and he introduced himself, and we tied a little bit after everybody left, and kind of switched information, and we stayed in touch and started tying together. And he said, listen, I'm going to teach you everything I know, but the promise you got to make me is no secrets. You got to do what I'm doing for you with everybody else. You got to pass on the information and teach the craft. And I said, okay, great. And I started writing the newsletters, and now we're on I think newsletter 100 and change.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of months since I met Eric and took the blood oath to pass on the information.
That's pretty rare, though. I mean, a lot of people really guard their secrets, and it really shouldn't be like that. It should be, like you said, you should be trying to pass it on and let everybody experience it. Yeah,
fly tying's a lot like magicians. The fly tyers all have their secrets, and it's guarded, shrouded. Forever, people would ask me, how do you tie the bower crab? And until I found the video, an archived one of from Will Bauer, how to tie it, no one really knew. I wrote about it and started trying to dispel all these myths that people had on no one knows how to tie that correctly. And that was part of my process with the newsletters, is getting out information that I wish I would have had when I started.
Yeah. True. Yeah. So that's the Salty Fly Chronicles. I think you got over 100 free step-by-steps now, right?
Yep. They're all online. So, I started writing that as a way to, get it out there to the world. And then it became the bane of my existence about 30 months in. I was, oh my God, what am I going to write about? But, it got easier and easier, and people started contributing, and, I'd interview folks, and once it snowballed, it kind of has a life of its own now.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is a breathing thing too. So you're in Fort Myers today? Is that where you live?
I am. Yep. I'm in Fort Myers. It's a nice sunny day. Like I said, it was a little chilly this morning, but
yeah,
it's all relative.
So this is your tying room you're sitting in?
Yeah, I give you a peek around here. Yeah. So these are just books, and I've got some feathers here I've been working on this morning. A lot of the process is prep, so kind of lay out capes and stack them up even. And then I do a lot of assembling based on stages. So this is just the first stage, which is the hooks and eye assembly, and then this is the feathers. You lay them all out in pairs, and then you kind of put the rest of your components out that you want to put in there for each color pattern. But that's a lot of what I do. This is my setup here. Got kind of a U-shaped bench, and another station over here, and I build crabs in the garage. I need a lot more space for that. Up here is where I do all the step-by-steps. This is my super elaborate photo booth here with 2 shop painter lights. I cut the middle out, so this is just a piece of vellum and plexi, which has been warped by the heat of the lights over the years, and a blue background. But all my books are shot in this cardboard box. It's nothing too fancy,
Yeah.
And that's it, man. That's where it all happens.
So
all the bugs and books come out of this one room.
It's cool seeing it all laid out on the table. Boat Boards did the that video on you called The Artisan, and there's a couple things that I thought I knew about you, but I wasn't quite sure. And the first thing was I'd always kind of seen your flies and your style of tying and the way you lay things out was kind of like a chef, like a like you're building something, you're prepping all your materials, and then I'll be damned as soon as that thing started, it's you in the garden cutting vegetables, and this light went off. I was like, oh my god, they nailed it, you know.
Yeah, my biggest passion is probably cooking. If I didn't get into this industry, I would definitely be wielding a chef knife and a whisk. I kind of wish I'd gone to culinary school, but I've worked with some great chefs over the years and picked up as much as I can, and read a lot. So I cook an awful lot, and you're right. It's kind of they run parallel. A lot of times when I photograph flies, I think about sushi, like when they prep sushi and how they lay it out.
Right.
So that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from, is food.
And you grow a lot of your own vegetables too, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in a big Italian family, and grandparents and brother and father all have giant gardens, and I do my best here in Florida to have a garden. I've got it tapped into the sprinkler system here, so little drip heads and stuff. I do mostly herbs. I got some tomatoes out back, some peas. Do a lot of pesto, so the vast majority of my planter boxes are basil and parsley out back.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Another thing, the other thing in that video was I'd always kind of pictured you kind of, you're a Tom Waits fan. You ever heard of Tom Waits?
Yeah, for sure.
Got that weird song, "What's he building in there?" What the hell is he building in there? Oh, I just had that picture of you in this dark room in this little dimly lit corner cranking out flies. And as soon as the vegetable scene was over, there you were in like this dark room cranking out flies.
I'm convinced the neighbors have a lot of questions. When I build flies in the garage, a lot of times I'll leave the door, half down. So, I've just got my music in there, but I got some airflow, and a lot of times I'll see people taking walks and kind of peeking in, seeing what I'm doing.
That's funny. And that video just nailed it. It nailed it for me.
Yeah, the boat did an amazing job. Sean Murphy crushed it. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
The cinematography and audio, and they killed it.
Yeah, it's very good. We'll put a link up here for it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to shoot too.
Yeah, that was shot where you are in Fort Myers.
Yep, we got shut down by the FAA with the drone and all kinds of chaos.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was cool though, man. I mean, we had a great time.
They took your footage and everything, or?
Yeah. You mean the FAA?
Yeah.
No, they just made us land the drone. Apparently we got a little bit too high above the mangroves there into some space we shouldn't have been in, but par for the course.
It happens. So so I guess there's no snook in New York. Is that what brought you to Florida? I mean, what prompted that move?
Yeah. So when I graduated from college, I was looking for a job, and I picked up one in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I worked there for a while, and the opportunity came up for a Florida president. So they asked me to go down to Florida and get the licensure for the mortgage, title, and real estate operation. And I did that. I went down. I had like a 6-month window, I think, to get all 3 licenses. And then they were going to call me back to New Jersey. And I said, nope.
People don't even know what snow is.
Yeah, I remember it was January 13th, 2003, when I stepped off that plane in a 3-piece suit, and my pants were still wet from the slush on the plane. I remember looking down, and that warm air kind of hit you like opening an oven door, and there was no going back from that. Once I got a taste for saltwater, we'd done some stripers and stuff like that in Jersey, but it is not the same as being on the flats with tarpon and snook in the backyard.
Yeah. So your early tying days, it wasn't more the Catskill stuff. Everybody thinks of the dry flies and stuff. You were predominantly a bass guy, right?
Yeah, I did whatever was biting at the time. I tried to build something for it. The vast majority of my childhood was spent with a minnow bucket or coffee can with worms. And then as I got into fly fishing, it was okay, we're going to go to Tony Specchio's bass pond, and my buddies would all be throwing net spinners and curly tails and stuff, the old Mr. Twisters, and I was flailing away trying to make it happen on a popper.
Yeah, probably helped a lot with your transition to the snook down there in Florida. They're
Oh yeah,
similar to me.
they're all ambush, tarpon, snook, bass. They're similar, upward facing morphology. They can hit in front of them, but that kind of violent explosion all happens on the surface. So you get used to thinking like they do, where to put the fly, the pause, when they stop and look at it, you can almost like, okay, wait for it,
Right.
Little twitch, little wiggle, strip. Yeah, it's all the same. Bass maybe a touch easier, but especially with those big poppers y'all are making these days.
The double barrels.
Yeah, I mean, I use those things for just about everything. I even got one here I was playing around with, doing some like billfish stuff, some pelagics.
Nice.
But
tube?
I tied that one on a tube with some junction tubing back here, so you can put whatever you want in there for a hook. I haven't got into that game yet. That's next on my list.
Yeah,
I'd love to do some pelagic stuff.
Me too.
It's like an evolution, right? You start with bass and you end at billfish.
Totally.
And then when you have kids, you get to go back to bobbers. You start the whole game again.
Right. You have kids too, right?
I have one daughter, Lucy. Yep, she's 9.
Nice. She's got the bug too.
She likes to catch fish.
Right.
I don't know if she likes fishing as much.
Yeah.
She really likes bait fishing because it's way faster. She's taken some classes with myself and buddies for, casting. She talks an awful lot of smack when we go to fly tying shows. Lucy, no.
Please no.
Yeah, she was 4 years old and we were in a fly shop in Texas or maybe she was 5. She was just a youngin', and we rolled into this fly shop and there was a guy behind the bench, behind the desk, tying tarpon toads. He was putting a rabbit zonker upside down and then cutting it off. And she rolled up on him and gave him the hairy eyeball. And he's like, well, this is how you do it, sweetheart. He was just trying to be nice, some old timer. And she goes, you're doing that wrong. and he goes, what? And she goes, cut zonker with a zonker strip with a scissors, you'll cut the fur. You got to use a razor blade so you don't lose the tail. And the guy was like, he didn't know how to react.
Yeah, he probably quit.
That was it.
He's a golf pro now.
Got a tongue lashing from 5-year-old, But yeah, she ties with me a little bit.
Yeah,
she's good for 1 or 2, especially if it's about bedtime. That's when she'll ask if we can tie a fly, because it's like the chink in the armor for Dad.
Yeah, and you've been. I read one of your ebooks was on largemouth bass. That double barrel popper was in there too. The pineapple grenade popper.
Yeah, so that is basically your popper with a little more foam on the back to keep it up, which came from kind of a funny story. My buddy Oliver was going to, I think, Oman, Oliver White, and he said, Drew, I need a big popper for some of these species here. I can't remember if it was GT or some crazy fish over there. And he sent me a picture of the hook he wanted it on. So the popper was plenty big enough and the hook fit on it. But as soon as I put it on, the wire was so heavy, it literally like sunk the popper. It was like an 8/0 or something, like a big giant tarpon hook of some kind. So I started brainstorming, maybe we can glue some foam on or whatever. But I ended up using that my fettuccine foam to keep the back of the fly up and add some more buoyancy. So, when I trimmed it to like a tail instead of using like a hackle or something like the classic style of popper, it looked like a pineapple. So that's where that fly came from, just trying to fix a problem.
Yeah. And that did
And
it.
now I use it. Yeah, now I use it for everything. I think it looks cool, but it also keeps the fly up no matter what, no matter how many fish bang on it and pieces get chipped away. It keeps it up in the water column on top.
Nice. And you tie those smaller as well too, right?
Yep.
Nice.
I really like, here's a beat up one I use for bass. I like this size. I don't know what it is, maybe the small. I think there's an extra small and a small. This one's seen a better days, but put a few rubber legs out the back and a weed guard on it. And, the foam helps kind of push more disturbance on the surface if you leave it a little bit wider. So this gives a big pop with the bubbles and makes the noise, and then the foam kind of puts the ripples out, and it all comes together. But that's one of my favorites for bassing anyways.
Like that style too, that fettuccine foam would keep it splayed. It wouldn't like feathers at all.
Yeah, you put it in the middle as a spreader. It keeps the legs out there. I've also found that this Gorilla Glue, this one I went a little heavy. That's why it was in my personal box. But the Gorilla Glue that foams up, you put, let me see if I got it right here on the bench. I use this stuff an awful lot. A little dab will do you. It blows up like crazy. So don't go hog wild with that stuff. You wet the thread before you put it on. Make sure you got the hole through the popper, and then just put a little drizzle of that stuff and then thread the popper on. And it expands, and it actually glues to the whatever you're using as that collar, that foam. So this thing, it doesn't spin it on that hook shank at all. And, a lot of times you can find the bent popper hooks for, the longer shank, which I like. But if you don't have it, you just put a heavy thread base down and it grabs a hold like you can't believe.
I didn't know that stuff expanded. Is that like a chemical reaction with the foam, or?
I guess it reacts to moisture. So I had found this. I tried to glue up it's supposed to be for wood, stone, metal, ceramic, foam, glass, and more. But I was trying to glue a table leg on, and I used too much of this stuff, and it blew up, and I had a leg going over here or something, So I figured out real quick that there was an application for it, and it floats, it's foam. So like you're just adding more buoyancy to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it works great.
The cool thing about those bigger ones made me think about when I saw that big offshore popper you had, is that cup face is so big you can actually drill and stick little glass rattles in there too.
Yeah, I had seen some guys do that. Super cool.
Yeah.
I get an awful lot of guys asking for that when I do for Louisiana. I just put a real long bucktail on it and kind of paint them in a mullet color, a little bit of yellow on the throat and kind of a muddy tan on the back. And man, it gives that super deep, glug noise. It's like the siren call for those big reds.
Is that fly in your step-by-steps as well?
Yeah, I think that one's it's in the Tarpon book, my top saltwater flies.
Okay.
Tarpon. They all kind of run together now. I don't know how many books I'm on, but trying to recall which one it's in. I know I should probably know better, but it's just there's always a booking process. I'm working on another permit one now. I was just working on this floating crab pattern. You can see my computer here. I got this one will be in next month's newsletter, the Gulf Coast Drifter. It's a floating crab pattern that emulates our past crabs here. But everything eats them, permit, tarpon. So it's just same style as my contraband, but a little bit different hook, a little bit different assembly process. And it's done with the foam.
And the little crab, the little legs hang down in the water.
Yep, you got it. That keel works, the hook works as a keel to kind of keep it, riding right. But it's a great little pattern. The problem with floating crabs is you usually can't get them balanced correctly. The hooks for what you're targeting is too heavy. So let's say you're trying to catch tarpon on a floating crabs. You use a tarpon style hook. Well, you need, 6 inches of foam to keep it in the air. Guys, maybe you should work on a double barrel crab or something. Maybe we'll have to cut one in half and I'll start working on something like that.
Save it down.
Yeah.
I've heard of that pass crab fishing. I've never done that. I've heard those crabs will like ride on little leaves on the road.
So hill tides, you'll see just like waves of these crabs, and as they get flushed out of the estuaries, they're on the grass. So a lot of times during tarpon season, you get the kids in a bunch of dip nets and get in the passes and let them all fish them out. It's fun.
Nice.
Yeah,
that sounds incredible. Like you can see them rising, hitting the crabs around you, and
oh yeah, it's like dropping a 50-gallon drum in the water. Sometimes they sip them, like they come up and just, but other times it's the usual,
That's crazy. I want to share the screen. I want to ask you about this other fly that was on your Instagram page. Here, see that one. Is that
okay?
On your end?
Yep. Yeah. So that is the globster. So my friend Clint from Black Fly Lodge and I worked on that one. He runs that, like I said, Black Fly on Abaco, and he had been doing a little research, and in his fishing and exploration down there, discovered these baby lobsters, and everything eats them. And like anything else, there's a hatch phase, and they're in different colors. So I think when they're the smallest phase, they're completely translucent clear, and then they get like the black and then brown. That might be reversed, but anyways, long story short, these tiny lobsters and the permit are eating them. So he started messing around with a lobster imitation, and he called me and said, hey, I've got something close, but would you be willing to partner on this with me, and let's tighten the screws down, see if we can come up with something ultra realistic. So I, went back to the lab and started tinkering, and that's what we came up with. Yeah, said turn the lights off and put on my goggles.
It looks like it's tied with a lot of mono, kind of a Fred Haney style.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost exclusively mono. I use a little, like the juvenile lobsters have kind of a cream colored middle, so I use a little bit of white thread in the middle and to cover up the weight. But then, he's that lobster is just all different colored monofilament.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I can't stop looking at that thing.
Covered it up with some of that solar res, and it goes completely clear. I love that stuff.
That's like a little bonefish size in that picture, right?
Yeah, I think that one's tied on a 2.
Number 2,
which is that Gamakatsu L11 3H, which is a heavier wire. So when you go down in size, you can scale it and the hook won't straighten out. A lot of other saltwater style hooks, if you go down in size, the wire is, matching the size of the hook. And then what happens is you're tying on like an 8 or a 10, and any bonefish or permit would just either crush it in their crushers or straighten it right out.
Yeah. So the tail was looped mono. Is that to kind of help the presentation, to keep it kind of in that fleeing position? Or
yeah, that and the aesthetics. We did a bunch of different versions of it, kind of tinkering around, and that one just seemed to look the best and descend through the water column the best. So that's what we went with.
Yeah, I mean, you could use that even in freshwater streams. I know a trout would just
looks like a
hell
little
out of that thing.
Yeah, little crayfish looking pattern.
Totally.
And it, the more I throw it, the shorter I end up cutting those whips off the antenna. It looks great, if you're gonna leave it on your desk, but I find myself cutting it shorter and shorter, and the fish don't really care. So if you're doing it for shadow box, do it more realistic. But for castability, I nick them down to like, maybe an inch long, not 2 inches or whatever we started with. But like anything else, they're all a work in progress. Even the flies that are in all my books, people call me and say, hey, when you put it online, it's not the way you did it, or it looks different than the book. And I was like, I wrote that book like 8 years ago or
Yeah.
something. I've tied another 500 of them, and you just keep tweaking and testing, and they just evolve.
Yeah. I can't hear Clint's name without thinking of his conch fritters. Has he ever made those for you?
Oh yeah,
Good
we
Lord.
were just down there. That place is magical.
Yeah.
It's my happy place.
The Black Fly Lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
We're,
place is great. The
we're
food.
gonna do a Strip Strike University down there September. Let me see if my calendar is up. September 3rd through the 8th. I think there's only a few spots left. We got most of it booked, but we're going to focus on fly tying. But, I might do some cooking tutorials, and boat paddle boards is getting involved. And we're going to do some how to fly fish from a paddle board, which is my passion and what I do most of the time these days.
So how'd you get started on the paddle boards? Obviously, you think of Florida, it's a skiff community.
Yeah, well, I live on a tidal creek, and I don't like sitting down when I fish. I fished out of a kayak a lot, and I always found myself standing up and trying to balance in there, and I want to see what I'm casting to. So I reached out to boat and wanted to try one of those, and things kind of evolved from there. It's my favorite way and to fish, and I started writing about it and became an ambassador for them, and the rest is history.
Yeah, one of your ebooks is based on stand-up paddleboard fishing.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions. It's harder than it looks to get into, but once you're in and you kind of got your pins underneath you and you understand, like, okay, there's fly casting, there's balancing on the paddleboard, there's fishing, they're all like different elements. Once you spend some time and you get comfortable with it, it's relatively easy.
Yeah.
But it takes some fast tracking, and that's why I wrote the ebook on how to get your setup right. So these are things that I learned the hard way. Like, you're going to need an anchor, because when you hook a 35-inch snook in the mangroves, you're going through the mangroves.
Yeah.
There's no way to stop. Sanibel sleigh ride style. So,
what kind of anchor what kind of anchor do you use?
I use like a mushroom anchor, like a 10 or 15 pounds or something, on just a 15-foot lead of like 550 paracord, with a couple of floats, so I can pop it off, a quick release knot, much like tying up for tarpon. If I have to, if I get kind of tied up in current or something, I gotta get off the lead quick. That's why I do that. A lot of times boats are coming, and you're in the middle of a creek or waterway, and they're coming around the corner, wide open. You're just trying to get the hell out of the way. But I fish a lot from a stationary position. As soon as I see the fish, or I know the fish are coming, I get set up, anchor up, and get prepared for the cast. And that's what I find is the most efficient, rather than trying to run and gun. And okay, now the board's moving, the fish is moving, you can't keep the fly moving fast enough. So the book talks a lot about setup and preparation, just like everything else I do, so you can get the best shot and fight the fish from a stationary position. It's less of a rodeo once you're tethered to the ground.
Yeah. It was very informative. We're actually my family's shopping for them too. I sold our little flat skiff and bought a bigger boat, so we're going to put some on the top for we say for the kids, but they're really for us.
Reach out to me afterwards and I'll feed you the fire hose. I've got more information on those and what I like, and just ideas and tips for family stuff too. I put Lucy on the front of mine most of the time, and Susan has her own, so we do the family trips a lot. But happy to provide you with any info you need.
You seem to like the inflatables. You prefer those?
They're my favorite, just because I'm on them not every day, but probably 4 or 5 days a week I'm on it, and they're just easier to maneuver. And if you're not super careful like I am and you bang into things, you don't chip them up. They take a licking and keep on floating, I guess.
Yeah, so they're fairly durable.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
really durable.
I'd be
They're
worried about
really
oysters here.
Yeah, they're like the Navy SEAL Zodiacs, whatever those things are. They're real tough. I'm not saying you couldn't pop one if you buried a 3/0 tarpon hook in the side of it, but for the most part, abrasion and stuff like that, you're fine. Yeah, they're really stable, and that's why I like them. I don't ever feel like if I lean too hard or the fish goes underneath the board, you're gonna flip. They're wide. They're also I find if I'm going to spend 3-4 hours on it, a little bit easier on this old guy's knees and ankles, and
Oh, the
they're
cushioning.
yeah they're squishy. I mean they're super buoyant, but they have a little more give to them. So that's what I like. The Verge, Rackham Verge Camo one. That's the I think it's 12 and change maybe. But it's like a garage door for stability. It's awesome.
And the inflatables, obviously it's filled with air, so it's lighter transport weight, right?
Much lighter. You can put it it comes with a duffel bag. I mean, if you want to take it over to the Bahamas, that's what we're going to do. You can unroll or take the caps off, take the air out of it, roll it up, put it in the bag, and you're good to go.
Nice.
They're super super easy to do. I would suggest getting the pump that you plug into the cigarette lighter in your car, or get a converter, whatever you need if you're going to plug them in, but it saves you a ton. Pumping that thing up to 15 pounds with a hand pump.
Ooh.
Make a man out of anybody.
But plus it'll suck all the air out for you too.
Yeah. It speeds up the whole process, gets you on the water way quicker.
So you're going to take those with you to the Bahamas next time?
Yeah, when we go over in September, we're going to bring 3-4 of them and teach off them too.
Very cool.
So that'll be cool. If anybody's interested in that, reach out to me. I think, like I said, we got a couple openings left, but we'll probably end up doing more of the paddleboard fly fishing schools in the future. People are really interested in the process, and like you said, solo skiffs seem to be all the rage right now, and the paddle boards are just way more convenient and easy.
Yeah, so some of the ones on your videos had motor mounts. You use that pretty often?
I don't. Most of the time I'm not going too far, but if you are trying to get to some new water outside of your normal fishing area, that's the way to go.
And that kind of sponson design, is that design more stable with that?
Oh yeah, that thing it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's basically like 2 pontoons. It's fantastic.
Nice. And I saw some of your gear for those paddle boards. You like the shorter rods, right?
Yep. So I find that a 7/6 rod is way easier to work with, just because a lot of the terrain I'm fishing back here is like little creeks and mangrove tunnels, and waving a 9-foot pole around gets a little bit laborious just from a cramped space area. So you can make way more technical casts with that shorter 7/6 rod. The one we designed one with Maven Rods out of New Zealand. That's been my latest project. They have one that we put together. It's turbo taper, so it's a way faster action rod, super tight loops. You don't need a ton of line outside the rod tip to load it up. And it's my go-to for snook and baby tarpon, redfish. It's got plenty of backbone to hoss them out of the bushes. And now we're doing it in a one piece in 8, 9, and 10, which is just the sickest rod ever. I love the 4 pieces. They're fantastic for travel. We designed the shorter rods in a 4-piece, by the way, so you can actually get them in a rod tube to get them on the plane. You'd think, oh, a 7/6 rod, that's easy, but if it's 3 pieces, it's longer than the 9. So the rod tubes on the old 7/6s, you couldn't get them in the plane or the luggage with all the. Not that anybody's traveling too much now, but it's going to open up eventually.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, but the 1 pieces for if you're fishing, if you live on the water and you're fishing every day, man, they are just a sweet casting rod.
Yeah. So those are already available, or y'all still producing?
Yep. They are out now. We just put them up on the site, I think last month. Like I said, the 9 foot and 7.6. The 7.6 is available in the 8, 9, and 10, and we've got the 11s in the 9 foot rods for tarpon and such. But yeah, you haven't tried a Maven yet, get after it. They're unbelievable. They're all handmade out of New Zealand, and I'm bringing them into the US here as a distributor. So anybody out there wants to get their paws on them or has any questions, let me know.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's very few manufacturers making those short rods. I mean, they're highly considered a specialized stick to some people, but I mean, like I'm with you. There's a lot of benefits to those things, especially
I think once folks try them, it's hard to go back. From an accuracy standpoint, they're surgical.
Yeah.
And especially if you're trying to thread the needle into mangrove pockets or, whatever. I mean, most of the time you're not trying to make 100-foot cast. It can be done with a short rod, but bonefish, redfish, tailors, you're hitting them at 40, 50 feet, especially if you're on a paddleboard, you can dang near bump into them without them knowing you're there.
Yeah.
So if you want to be able to just put it right on their nose, that's the way to do it.
Especially like the kayak fishermen too. I briefly kayaked fish after college, and it was so new at the time, nobody was there to tell anybody. So I bought an 11-foot 7-weight rod thinking that would be easier from the seated position, and man, it was hell. It was just pure hell. Then I guess Siege came out with the bass rod, which was good, but that's designed for big heavy flies, and it's not, like you said, it's not a fast action rod by any means.
Yeah, it's kind of your old bamboo style. It's I'm not saying anything derogatory about any other manufacturers, but the action wasn't really conducive to a aggressive, faster paced casting saltwater style. It was pretty wispy, you could
baby.
Yeah, you could bomb it, but you had to wait a few minutes, let her uncoil, let her unfurl,
Totally. So those Maven rods are available now in the US.
Oh yeah, if you go to Maven Rods USA, there's all everything fly and spin. If you're into the spin game, we've got the travel rods in fly and spin, the multiple piece ones. We've got 9 foot, 7.6, coming any number of colors. They're all custom, handmade to order, so they're gonna take a little bit longer, but that's what you get when you're buying something that's not a production rod. Our standard lead time on those is about 4 to 6 weeks. So if you got a big trip coming up and you want something fancy and your name on it or any kind of customization, get that order in a little bit earlier than you'd think.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm excited about those.
Yeah, you'll love them. I can show you a couple of them here. These are I don't know if you can see them.
Oh yeah.
These are the natural color, and then we've got the Maven blue with the orange wraps as well.
Those are going up to 12 weights?
Actually, we've got 15. So if you're, wishful thinking, as we were designing the lineup, I said that one of these days I'm going to get into billfish, or let's go smash some big sharks. So we went all the way up to 15 on those.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here. We just ordered a big Shilton 16-weight reel and gonna try to do something we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, it's just what else could possibly go wrong? It's worth the try anyways.
Yeah. So what's your plans the rest of the day? You gonna fish this afternoon or?
I got a bunch of flies to tie, but I'll probably pop out and take a break from the bench for an hour or so and see if there's any snook out back or in the river. Or, I live right off the Caloosahatchee here, so about this time of year is when it all starts to go hog wild.
Yeah, that weather helps, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're coming into that magical time of year when all those snook are just floating around, and the tarpon will be here, and it's the best time of year in Southwest Florida.
Heck yeah. So the flies that you tie at home are available on Salty Fly, right?
Yep, I tie commercially still. Not nearly as many as I used to, thank goodness. My pals at Umpqua are taking a lot of the pressure off me. But yeah, I still tie for a select group of guys and friends and things like that. You can check me out on saltyflytying.com or Instagram, see kind of what I do. Most of my patterns and past work is up there.
Perfect, man. Well, man, I can't thank you enough for taking time out to talk to me. I know you're busy,
Sure.
man.
Yeah, there's always something going on, right?
Heck
Who
yeah.
isn't?
Heck yeah. I'm gonna talk to my wife about that paddleboard university and see if
Yeah, give me a holler, man.
go
We'll
in
get you
there.
set up with some boat boards and we'll go from there.
Awesome. We'll put a bunch of links up here at the end of this for you too.
That sounds great.
All
Anybody
right.
has any questions, I'm always available. Reach out, Drew at saltyflytying.com or hit me up on Instagram. Happy to help any way I can.
The professor.
That's it, man. Passing on the knowledge.
That's it. Thanks, brother.
All right, you have a great day. Take care.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Yep.